and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Emily and this channel is all about life abroad, living in Canada, expat things, travel and other related stuff like that. So if you are interested in that kind of content, don't forget to check out my channel. I post videos every single week, and if you're interested, subscribe if you want to. So I know that I've done a lot of comparison videos recently, but you guys keep asking for them, so I feel like I have to deliver because I don't want to disappoint anyone. I've done a comparison with Victoria and Toronto, I've done cost of living, I've done the UK versus Canada, and now I'm gonna go a little bit closer to home. This video has been requested by quite a few of you now, so I figure like I should make it, even though I'm not as knowledgeable about this place as I am about the others that I've done. And that comparison is between Vancouver and Victoria. Now, if you're familiar with the geography of British Columbia, you'll know that these two cities are very close together. They're just separated by that, you know, hefty ocean, because Victoria is on an island. But yes, Vancouver and Vancouver Island, which is where Victoria is, are very different places. I have never lived in Vancouver, but I have visited quite a few times. I know people that live there, and I've lived in enough different places to know how to kind of pick up on a place's vibe, how it is to live there, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna go based on what I think it would be like to live there, based on some of my research, some of the people that I've spoken to. And then obviously with Victoria, I live here now. I've lived here for the past almost year and a half, so I can definitely speak to that a little bit more. And obviously before I get into this is all my own opinion. Please don't hate me. I love British Columbia. It's no secret if you've been around. I absolutely adore this province. It is my favorite province in Canada. It's one of my favorite places in the world. So please don't get upset if I have an opinion that is different to yours. If you do have a different opinion though, I'd love to hear it. So comment down below. That would be awesome. I love talking to you guys. It really makes my day. So if you do have different opinions or different thoughts, let me know. So I'm gonna go into the cost of living because that is, I feel like, such a big draw between the two cities. Vancouver is notoriously expensive, and it comes as no surprise that it is much more expensive to live in Vancouver than it is Victoria, and that's mainly down to the rent. The rent in Vancouver is almost 25% higher than in Victoria. Victoria sits at about, on average, about $1,600 to $1,700 a month, whereas Vancouver is over $2,000 a month. It is so expensive to rent in Vancouver, it's so expensive to buy. This is not a secret, this is a very common thing, you've probably heard of it, it is true. Although Victoria is still very expensive, especially in specific areas like downtown, James Bay, Oak Bay, anywhere that's kind of close to the city centre, it does get expensive. But Vancouver is significantly more expensive than even those places. So I feel like that is a massive draw to either city. A lot of people move out of Vancouver and come to Victoria, and a lot of people don't move to Vancouver because they don't want to pay the extortionate rent prices. So we'll just get that easy one out of the way, and then we'll get into the more opinionated things. And next, I guess I'll talk about the demographic. So from what I have experienced and seen, the demographic in Victoria is a little bit older than Vancouver. Victoria was known for a long time, and still known to some people, as the place of the newlywed and nearly dead. Not the greatest thing to say, but there are a lot of people around Canada that come to Victoria to retire because of its climate. It is mild all year round, it has beautiful views pretty much wherever you go, and it does have a slower pace of life, so you do get a lot of older generations here. Whereas in Vancouver, there's a lot more young professionals, just because of the economy there, just because of the job market there. There's a lot more offices in Vancouver, a lot more job opportunities, so you are going to get younger people there. I find that Vancouver people are also a lot more active. Not that Victoria people aren't, but in Vancouver, I feel like fitness is a much bigger focus. You know, you'll go around Stanley Park and there'll be people cycling and running and marathons, and lots of people will go to their spin class or yoga or whatever. Whereas in Victoria, people are a lot more laid back. While people in Vancouver are out running around Stanley Park or running the seawall, people in Victoria head down to the beach to relax. That's pretty much the best way that I could put it. Not to say that Victoria people are lazy, because they're definitely not. They're a lot more outdoorsy than most other places that I've ever lived. But in comparison to Vancouver, I feel like people in Victoria are a lot more laid back. Not just in Victoria, but on the island in general. People are a lot more laid back, a lot more chill. They're definitely outdoorsy, but just not as fitness focused as people in Vancouver. From my own opinion and what I have seen, obviously everybody is different, and there are a lot of people in Victoria who are extremely active, who literally hike in the morning, go running, cycling, and then paddleboard at night. That is not an exaggeration. I know people who have done that. But although the Victoria demographic is older, I feel like it is changing. I personally know a lot of people in my own generation who have moved out here, a lot of people in my own age group. A lot of people are moving to Victoria. I've definitely found in the last year, 2 years, I know a lot more people that have moved to Victoria from Vancouver instead of Vancouver, who have moved from other provinces, who have moved from other places of the world. A lot of people are moving to Victoria who don't fit into that traditional older demographic. A lot more shops and restaurants as well are opening that are kind of catering towards that demographic too. So I definitely feel like although Victoria's demographic probably is slightly older than Vancouver's, it is starting to change, and the city is starting to cater to the younger generations. On to shopping and entertainment. It probably comes as no surprise, as Vancouver is the bigger city. There is a lot more shops, restaurants, bars, entertainment, things like that around Vancouver. If you want to go to a sports game or a concert, pretty much every major artist is going to stop in Vancouver if they're doing a Canadian tour. Usually it is Vancouver and Toronto. So if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into big nightlife, going to lots of restaurants, you like going out to bars, you like that bustling city life, then Vancouver definitely has that. And that's not to say that Victoria doesn't have those things. It definitely has bars and restaurants. Nightlife, I can't really comment on because I'm not really a big nightlife person. Also, we've just come out of a pandemic, so nightlife probably hasn't been great in either places, but Victoria definitely doesn't have the same amount of nightlife and bars and restaurants as Vancouver does because it is a lot smaller. There's not as many people. Vancouver as well has more mainstream shops. It has a lot of the big brands. It has your IKEA, your Zara, all of the US brands, things like that. You can go to the big outlet stores, whereas Victoria has a lot more local boutique-y places. So there are entertainment options and shops and restaurants and bars in both cities. They're just a little bit different, and Victoria has some amazing shops, bars and restaurants, some of my favorite that I've ever been to. There's just not as many as there is in Vancouver. Personally, for me, I don't feel like that is a deterrent because I don't always like a lot of choice. For example, when I lived in Toronto, I always found like there was too much choice. Like I had too many options to choose from, and then I ended up sticking with my favorites anyway. So for me, I find that Victoria as a size of a city is a lot more manageable than say Vancouver or especially Toronto. When it comes to hiking and nature, BC obviously is one of the most beautiful places in the world to do that, and both cities have amazing nature, amazing hiking trails, amazing options if you're an outdoorsy person. Obviously Vancouver's on the mainland, so it has a lot more access to different locations. You can easily drive to different places if you want to, whereas Victoria only really has Vancouver Island unless you want to get a seaplane or a ferry over to the mainland. But that's not to say you don't have any options, because as you have heard me talk about before, Victoria has some of the most beautiful trails I've ever been on, and Vancouver Island in general, especially when you go up to Tofino and Ucluelet, which are two of my most favorite places on this planet. The hiking trails are phenomenal. Of course, in Vancouver, you get a lot more height. Coastal mountains are smaller and the island mountains are a lot smaller than Vancouver. So if you enjoy those lofty hikes, the ones with bigger views and more mountains, then obviously Vancouver is going to cater more to that. And obviously if you're living in Vancouver, you can also just drive to the Rockies. You can drive to Alberta if you really want to go crazy. So you do definitely have more access to different trails in Vancouver, but Victoria does have a lot of amazing trails, nature, and great camping spots as well. But although Victoria doesn't have as much access to different trails, I have found that Victoria's trails, the beaches, things like that, are a lot less busy than Vancouver. Obviously, there's not as many people here, so the trails are a lot more spread out unless you're going on really common ones like Mount Douglas or Goldstream on a weekend, the ones that people come to as a destination. then you will find that you can hike for a few hours and not actually see anyone. I've not been on loads and loads of hikes around Vancouver, but I've not really felt like that's the same thing. I feel like there's a lot more people around, the beaches are a lot busier, probably just because there is a lot more people there. Onto climate. Now you might think that because Victoria and Vancouver are close together that they have a very similar climate, but that's not actually true. It is similar in a lot of ways, but it's also very different. You might have heard me talk about this before, the famous island secret, but Victoria actually gets a lot less rain than Vancouver. I think Victoria's rainfall is only a third of what Vancouver gets. So when you hear about how wet BC is all the time and how much it rains, they are generally right, but Victoria is a bit of an anomaly. The reason being is we have the Olympic Mountains just across the water from us, and because of that we get something called a rain shadow, which basically means that the rain kind of passes over Victoria and goes on to other places. Now, if you go up island, you will experience a lot more rainfall. For example, Tofino gets a lot more rain than here, and I think it's Douglas Lake, or one of the lakes on the island, actually has the most rainfall in BC. It might even be in Canada. It might even be in North America, I'm not sure, but it gets a lot of rain. So Vancouver's climate is definitely a lot wetter, but it's also warmer in the summer and colder in the winter. Vancouver, it's not uncommon to get snow in the winter, whereas in Victoria, it's very, very uncommon to get snow. It's very, very uncommon for it to be a minus temperature. Although it does have its rainy season in the winter time, between November and January, I believe it is, that is our wet season. The most amount of rain that we get in a year is from those 3 months, and the rest of the year is pretty dry. Vancouver is also dry in the summertime, but it gets a lot hotter. In Victoria, because we're so close to the ocean, we do get a nice cool breeze. I prefer that. So in conclusion, Victoria's climate is kind of mild all year round, but in Vancouver, it's definitely hotter and wetter in the summer and also colder and wetter in the winter. Whereas Victoria is cooler in the summertime, but drier, and it's warmer in the winter and still also drier. And finally, travel. In regards to travel, obviously Vancouver does have the edge here. It is not only on the mainland, but it does have a massive international airport. It's a hub for many places, and you can pretty much get to anywhere you want to go going through Vancouver. Obviously, Victoria is a lot smaller. We don't have that. Although our airport is international, there's only a very small select places that it actually goes, and a lot of the times we have to transfer at a different airport, whether that is Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle, Toronto, places like that, to get where we actually want to go. Obviously in Vancouver, you also have things like the SkyTrain, the subway. You have Uber in Vancouver. Uber does not exist in Victoria. Things like that make it a lot easier to get around using public transport, whereas in Victoria, as you've heard me talk about before, we don't really have that. We do have double-decker buses though, so I feel like that is a point to Victoria. And we also have great biking lanes. I'm pretty sure Vancouver is pretty bike-friendly too, but I think Victoria definitely takes the biscuit. If you're an e-bike person, if you're a cyclist, a scooterist, or if you have a car, it's a lot easier to get around in a car in Victoria because we don't have the crazy traffic that Vancouver does. So it really does depend on where you want to go and what you want to do and what your priorities are. So if you're doing a lot of international travel, obviously it's easier to get to places if you live in Vancouver, but it's also really easy to get to places from Victoria. You just have to do that extra stop to get to Vancouver or another place to go on to your final destination. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was informative. I hope it was what you wanted to hear, those of you that asked me to do this. Again, I'll just say that I have never lived in Vancouver. I've only ever visited, so some of my opinions might not be the same as yours. Some of the things that I've said might not match up to what you think. So if that is the case, let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps to push my channel to others that might also be interested. And also, I post videos every single week. So if you did enjoy it, I'm going to be posting more. So it'd be awesome to see you again. Until my next video, I hope you have the most wonderful day, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.